Right, so obviously I gave this talk last couple of months ago in Stillcom, so it's changed slightly because there's a judicial inquiry going on at the moment. It started in February last year, and it looks like going on for another year. This last 2 weeks have been quite stressful because I was actually writing some of these slides last night. It's about 10 to 12. I haven't seen them since then, so it's going to be interesting. Obviously I gave this talk last year at Stillcom, so this year at Stillcom, I'll come to that in a second. So that number one in the top left-hand corner is the important thing in the slide. Everything else in the slide is not important, but it needs correcting. My name's Brian Whelton. Yeah, I do stuff. And look, come on. Fine. We're a tough crowd. Right. So, that's background for this. There's a lot of legal talk in here because it's about human impact, basically. It's not technical. We'll come to that in a second. I don't come from a legal background. Don't ask my advice unless you ask me what drink I want. Everything in this, there's no 0 days on the public domain, nothing privileged. More importantly, I haven't changed any names, and I will be naming people and showing photographs. And everything I show you, I'm going to give you a link to. This is something different from what I did in Stillcom. That's where that number one comes into it. So you'll have a link which we posted in about half an hour on Twitter. You can Google it. I'll give you a link at the end. But basically, you can just click on the link. It'll take you straight to everything I'm talking about. Every document I'm talking about, you can read in its entirety because I'm going to rush through a lot of these because I've got a lot to say. Anyway, here we go. So, computers. Everything you do today is governed by computers. Going back to the BGP talk just now, there was a DNS outage for Amazon a few years ago in New York, and my friend's robot vacuum cleaner stopped working in London. Everything we do is computer-based. You get a train, it's on a computer. When computers go wrong, though, you get cheese in your burger, or you miss your train, or something happens. It's very inconvenient. But what if you're accused of a crime based on evidence from a computer? You think there's safeguards to that, aren't there? That's great, because the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984, Section 69, meant that anyone taken to court with any evidence produced from a computer, be it a log, an email, regardless of what it actually is, had to go through reasonable grounds to make sure the computer was working correctly. Otherwise, it could be admissible as evidence. And that's fine, except that the Post Office, here we go, they wrote to the Law Commission in 1995 saying it was hampering their prosecutions because they're having more expense and they're having to prove a computer working. It was a bit inconvenient for them. It wasn't just the Post Office, it was BT, CPS, the DTI, Inland Revenue, a load of other companies as well. So this is 1995, so the Law Commission changed the law, and in 2000, on the 14th of April, the Youth Justice and Criminal Evidence Act 1999 came into effect, and Section 60 of it repealed Section 69. It brought in a legal term, which is quite interesting, called presumption of computer reliability. Doesn't fit with me. Basically, unless you can prove the computer was impaired at the time of operation, the court would deem it to have been working correctly. So, let's just say, for example, you work for a large UK brand post office. Pick that one out of there. And you used one of their tills, and it was acting like a random number generator. And they come and accuse you that basically you were stealing the money from it, because it said that you should have this, but you don't. Well, they take you to court. You say it's the computer. How do you prove it? You don't have access to logs, don't have access to anything like that. They're saying it's robust. They've even got someone from the company that made it and supplied it and supports it to come to court and say, no, computer system's robust. How can you defend against that? You can't, which is why that law needs changing. But that's the current state of law as it is today. So bear that in mind when you're actually conducting anything to do with computers. So, we're going to talk about these items here, the Post Office, we mentioned them. Post Office, 25 years ago, appreciate some of you probably weren't even born there, were the front door to every government service you wanted. If you wanted to claim benefits, if you wanted to pay tax, get a tax list for your car, anything you had to do with the government had to go through the Post Office over the front door. Obviously, as now we've got more and more services online, UK Gov services, hardly anyone uses the Post Office anymore. But they were literally the front door. They were very, very important. Back in 1999 when Horizon was released, only a third of the UK had the internet at home. Not many people had bank accounts, believe it or not. People were still getting paid in cash. So that's why the Post Office was so important to communities back then. Now, obviously, it's almost not really. These guys here are International Computers Limited. They were 80% owned by a company called Fujitsu, effectively the European arm of Fujitsu. 2002, I think March, they got fully bought out and rebranded in 2003. Fujitsu, bless them. We have these people here, the sub-postmasters and sub-postmistresses, these people from every background you can think of. I'm going to call them sub-postmasters because it's a generic term and it's a lot easier than saying all the different combinations, but ultimately, there are heroes, but also, unfortunately, are victims in the story. There was 18,000 post offices, 18,000 post offices. That's three different types. I'll come to that in a sec. There was three different types of post offices in 1999, still is today. 18,000 of them. It's about 11,500 post offices today. Because you have that many post offices, you have to have auditors and investigators make sure that sub-postmasters, because they're effectively sub-post offices are actually franchisees. Like McDonald's, they actually work for the post office. They're technically contractors. And you want to make sure they're doing okay. So you've got that many post offices, you've got that many auditors and investigators. And then obviously you have your legal teams. Now, legal teams are quite interesting because you have internal counsel and external counsel. Internal counsel are the ones who work for you, your in-house solicitor. External counsel are what you'll pull in because either you need more resource or specialists. For example, if you ever bought a house, you probably want to have the conveyancing solicitor because you don't have the expertise to do it. You've got patents and stuff like that. Like in computers, you've got all the different types of specialities, the same with legal things. They've used about, I think the number was 20 different companies over the last 20 years. It's definitely quite a lot, of which 6 were using prosecuting and postmasters with those different things. So there's those guys. And then we have our judges. Judges can only make judgments based on what they hear in court. If evidence, so we say, is not shared with defence where it should have been, the court won't hear it. And you don't get a fair trial. But we'll come to that in a second. So, the post office. Sure, most of you have interacted with a post office or been in one. I hope you've seen one. They're everywhere. But basically, they're very, very old. 1660 were quoted as the General Letter Office. We changed the post office later. 1661 had our first postmaster, and 1663 we had a gentleman attorney appointed. He had some legal powers. He was chasing people breaking into mail carriages going up and down the country. That was his job. 1707, the Act of Union. That's when England and Wales were effectively one country. They joined with Scotland. That's how old the country is. It's actually older than Britain. 1793, the Post of Investigation Department formed. Now, there are sometimes an investigation branch as well, but they're basically the oldest recognised criminal investigations body in the world, effectively the oldest police force in the world, and they still exist today. The Industrial Revolution was 1760, so we're talking a long time ago. In 1801, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Obviously, in 1926, we became Northern Ireland because the Republic was formed. Right there. And in 2019, this is a really important one. The Post Office was still saying that remote access wasn't possible to Horizon terminals, and the system was fine. Unfortunately, they went to court, it was proved it wasn't, and remote access was possible. So, going back to my question about the Post Office, Horizon, which delivered their system. Now, Horizon was effectively a financial system. Now, it's important to remember that as we go forward. It's a financial system. It connected to all these other different government departments. It connected to all these external parties, so like Celestia as well. Next to the DVLA, you won't be able to do anything with the DVLA at the Post Office because all these different government departments are now doing it directly online. So next year, officially, the DVLA will not do anything with the Post Office. But like I say, you used to have to go get your benefits. If you wanted to pay tax or anything like that, you had to go to the Post Office. So it had all these, presumably, codes of connections with all these other different government departments and also with the third-party private places. Now, this causes a problem, because if someone thought that Horizon was, shall we say, a random number generator or flawed in any way, would you want your computer system, one, connected to it, and two, dealing with it? I wouldn't. And so that leads us into what this whole talk's about, and I'll come to that in a couple of slides. To give you some idea how much business the Post Office does, in June this year, they tweeted this, and in May they went through £3.33 billion worth of cash transactions across their branches. That doesn't include any credit card transactions, just cash. They do a lot of, it's a big business, and that's why reputation is key. So, this leads us to where we are today. The Post Office Horizon IT scandal. Who here has not heard of it? Wow. Check the seats as a seatbelt, you might need them buckled down. Okay, you're in for a surprise, because this is horrific. And it's ongoing, by the way, it's still going. Why? It's been going now for long. Right, so basically, it's the largest miscarriage of justice in English and Welsh history, although it did happen in Scotland. It also happened in Northern Ireland. Don't forget they have a different legal system up there. In both those countries, it's slightly different. And they basically took people to civil and criminal courts for theft, false accounting, and or fraud. And they were quite successful at it. Their legal strategy was fantastic. Just withhold evidence. These were carried out by the Post Office, which is owned by the taxpayer. You and I own the Post Office. Today, we still own the Post Office. And they were aided and abetted by a multi-billion-pound company called Fujitsu, who weren't going to stop the Post Office looking after their reputation. The post office bet the farm on Horizon. It was in every one of their places. They had no other method of doing business. So the post office until about 2 years ago had on their website the UK's most trusted brand. Obviously they removed it. But their reputation was everything to them. It's such an old institution, they see themselves as that they had to protect their reputation. And that basically meant if Horizon was acting like a random number generator and it was flawed, well, they had no plan B. They'd sold everything. They bet the farm on Horizon. So they had to defend Horizon to the hilt. And Fujitsu were not going to let them do that, because Fujitsu obviously it would have affected their reputation. Fujitsu being largely, they've managed to avoid a lot of the limelight for this. The post office are at to blame here, because the post office have instructed legal action, but they wouldn't have had to be able to do that if it weren't enabled by Fujitsu, in my opinion. Anyway, so this is how it pretty much worked. 3 different types of post offices, like I mentioned earlier. You have outreach, which are basically your mobile post offices. You have your crown post offices, which are the big post offices. Those guys are civil servants. And then obviously we have our sub post offices, which are the ones you normally see in the small shops, your little counter, your little local supermarket. Now, at the end of each week, branch trading period, you have to do a branch trading statement, which they used to do prior to 1999 on a big sheet. And you used to write down all their transactions they were doing them. And then at the end of the week, effectively, the branch trading statement is a stock take of what you should have. And it worked reasonably well. That paperwork then went off to Chesterfield, where the head office of the post office is. But obviously, coming towards the 21st century, everything was being computerised. And this was a very archaic way of doing business. So they decided they were going to go off and put it out to tender. Fujitsu won the contracts. They come bottom of 8 of the 11 criteria which was set. And they didn't score off very highly in the other 3. But they won the contract and they delivered these terminals here. Different little things, aren't they? Anyway, so, the screens look like that when it first released. In 2010 they did an upgrade, and it looked like that. That's still the current screen they've got now, even though they did another upgrade in 2017. Sometimes the screen look like that. That's a fault with Tivoli. For some reason, Fujitsu love using Tivoli for management. It's a horrific program made by IBM. Please try and avoid it. Sometimes it look like that. Again, that's not a bug error or defect, because Horizon was robust. Again, not another issue. Clearly something else, not an issue with Horizon. Now, I love this one here. This is not an issue with Horizon, but it's got an error code. If it's got an error code, there must be a decode book somewhere. I'd love to hold that decode book, so I'd love to know what that is. So those last 4 screenshots were sent, they were posted on Twitter by a guy called Chris Head. Chris Head was the youngest postmaster in, I think, sometime in 2006 to 2015. He was 18 when he started over. And I said, Chris, can I please use those? I mentioned him on Twitter. I said, Chris, can I please use those pictures? And then, yeah, you crack on. And he went on to say that sometimes the branch computers would take 2 hours to boot up, and you had to have them up ready for 9 o'clock when the post office opened. Luckily, his shop opened at like 5:30, so he had time to do that. But whilst he was doing it, he was so frustrated with the amount of errors he had, he started taking photographs of them, because, clearly the system was robust. And I said, oh, Chris, that's a fantastic message. Can I please use that? And he went, yeah, crack on, mate. Yeah, crack on. Chris is actually local. I did actually ask him if he can come down today. Unfortunately, he wasn't available, but he is actually from Newcastle, so unfortunately, it would be great if he was here. But he was saying that basically, the MO was, if something was wrong, the first thing the post office would do, instead of, the first action the postmaster would see, was they'll start replacing stuff. The ADSL line, the router, the hardware. Yeah, because that fixes issues. Fundamentally, probably was some hardware issues there, we'll go into that in a second, but fundamentally, the issue was with the Horizon coding, which, should we say, suboptimal. Anyway, this is Tim McCormack. He's also another sub-postmaster, and he tweeted this. Now, I don't know where he got these figures from. He won't tell me. But if he says that's the case in 2002, that's 13 and a half. There was. It's my Elvis pose. Thank you very much. And so it's 13.5%. 13.5% failure rate is pretty high. Now, in the early 2000s, if you're not aware of it, Fujitsu had some issues with hard drives. I think they recalled something like 300,000 hard drives. And I'm not doing another pose. Okay. And so if you go to register, there was a big recall. I think they got sued in America for it. They had loads of issues with their hard drives in the early 2000s. 99, 2004, I think it was. So it's quite possible that some of that was down to dodgy hard drives. They were stupid enough to use their own material. Anyway, so the branch trading period. So at the end of the branch trading period now, it comes up on the computer. The computer says what you should have, how much cash, checks, so forth and so on. And if you didn't agree with the branch trading statements, you simply wouldn't be allowed to trade the next day because you had to press a button which said you agreed that the statement was correct. So if you had £500 in cash, but it said you should have £1,000 in cash, that's not correct. You shouldn't be pressing the button. But if you don't press the button, you can't trade the next day. So what's the sub-postmaster going to do? Well, first thing they're going to do is they're going to phone the help desk up. There's a lady called Jo Hamilton. She had a discrepancy of £2,000. She phoned the help desk up and she followed their instructions, pressing buttons on the screen, and she ended up with discrepancy jumped to £4,000. At this point, then the help desk were like, okay, it'll fix itself in the wash. Don't worry, reboot it. It'll be fine in the morning. Jo ended up with £36,000 deficit. She remortgaged her house for £30,000. I believe our local village actually clubbed together and paid £6,000. She was taken to court for 14 counts of false accounting, and she was found guilty. 14 counts of false accounting. And basically that's because of this, the Theft Act. Now, that's the one we're looking at here for false accounting. But often what would happen is the post office will take someone to court for theft. When they get to court, they'll turn around and say, listen, if you admit the lower charge of false accounting and sign this document here saying that Horizon wasn't at fault, we're willing to drop the theft charge. And you probably won't go to prison because it's false accounting. Well, there's a chance to silence the sub-postmaster, get them to sign an NDA saying it wasn't Horizon, but some were still sent to prison. Quite a few were sent to prison even though they admitted the lower charge, which they weren't guilty to. Their solicitors were actually saying, look, all the evidence against you is overwhelming. Mainly because basically the post office hadn't given all the evidence over to the defence team. But what they had given over was the guilty part. They didn't give over the bit that basically, it wasn't theirs. Some of these solicitors are actually MPs now. And, they're appalled. And some of the judges who sent people to prison, you can imagine how they feel now, because they'll just lie to in court, effectively. Well, not lied to, that's a strong word. They were misled in court. Wasn't told the whole truth. But so that effectively, slam dunk, pressing that button saying you agree with that, even though the figures are wrong, is false accounting. Slam dunk. Can't get away from it. That basically meant you basically ended up with either an auditor turn up, and auditors had some fantastic powers. They can go in, even though you bought the shop, the post office, and the idea of having the shop and the post office was footfall. Back in the early 2000s, because you had to do all your transactions in the post office, having a little corner shop, having the post office in was fantastic, because everyone had to go to the post office anyway to do all the stuff. They would buy something from your shop. Nowadays, that's probably not so much of a draw. But back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, it was a fantastic way. It's like selling newspapers, having a newspaper license. Great way of getting people in the shop. Buy a newspaper or buy something else. So, the investigators would turn up, and they could literally kick you out of your own post office. And they could suspend you there and then. So you weren't allowed in the post office in your shop. So you still had to work at the shop, but they'll bring someone else in to work in the post office. It's ridiculous. There's so much power. And it often led to, obviously, a criminal inquiry, or civil inquiry. Not everyone was taken to criminal court. And obviously ended up with the judge. And the judge obviously makes a judgment based on what he hears. Now, here's the thing that you need to start considering when you look at the whole legal aspect of it. The post office owned Horizon Terminal, even though it's managed and supplied by Fujitsu. The post office owned it. That made them the victim, but also made them the investigator and the prosecutor, because every one of the prosecutions went through a private prosecution. It didn't go through the CPS. The first one the CPS would have done was, where's the money? Clearly, if Jo Hamilton was remortgaging a house for £30,000, she clearly hadn't stolen £30,000 because she had to remortgage the house. And the question was never asked. There's lots of evidence of postmasters paying money back in. And not every postmaster was actually criminally or civilly convicted. They were often suspended or they could be sacked after 3 months. So there's thousands of sub-postmasters who have been paying money back in to avoid any action. Because basically their contract with the post office meant that if there's any loss, their contract meant they had to make up. The post office could not be at loss. So if there's £2.50 down, they're putting £2.50. If there's £250 down, they are liable for the £250. It's a very unfair contract. It was deemed unfair in 2019. But so effectively, their investigators, shall we say, are, I'm not going to say they're world class. Prosecutors, they're world class. They knew what to send to the defence and what not to send to the defence. But going to need some names from people who are good. These are good people. Nice people. Be nice to these people. They're very nice. First of all, you have Rebecca Thompson. And Rebecca Thompson was the person who's deemed to be the first real article about Horizon. There was some articles, going on, there was some people moan about the computers, but people were doing that in the early 2000s because computers were reasonably new. But she wrote an article which basically put the post office on their back foot. They were quite worried about what she wrote. Comes that article in there. this guy here, Carl Flinders, she worked for Computer Weekly. She's freelance now, but Carl Flinders continues to work for Computer Weekly, and he continues to cover the Post Office judicial inquiry that's going on at the moment. He does some fantastic work. Definitely watch. If you don't read Computer Weekly, it's definitely worth reading. Nick Wallace literally wrote the book. Literally, there's a book. It's a great book. I would fully recommend the book. It's a fantastic book. It's called The Great Post Office Scandal. It's about the group litigation trial and obviously the things leading up to it from 2019. It's a very easy read. Definitely go and buy it. It's worth buying. Great book. And he's encyclopedic knowledge. He attended court every day during the litigation in 2019. These two here, Ian Henderson and Ron Wilmington, they make up a company called Second Sight, who are forensic accountants. They're forensic accountants and also IT auditors as well. They've done thousands of audits around the world. As it transpires, their audit of the Horizon system was actually pretty damn good. And, top marks for those guys. These three here, these are definitely worth noticing. Paul Marshall, Flora Page, and Nick Gould. Now, there's plenty of legal representation the postmasters have who are doing these things. These three here knocked it out of the park, and I'll come to that when we talk about Stephen Measure a bit later. Remember Flora Page? I'll mention her later. She's special. And Paul Marshall, he has an impact upon us as well. But Nick Gould as well done some fantastic work. But it'll be relevant when I come to it. It makes sense. And then we have Richard Moorhead, who's Professor of Legal, I think it's Law and Legal Ethics at Oxford University, who has stood up a whole department. And his team have done some fantastic work. They're looking at every aspect of this. It's not just the postmaster thing. Looking at how they're treated by the judicial system. For example, it transpires, they're doing research into it at the moment, so I haven't read the full report, but it transpires that if you were a non-white post office worker and charged with a similar crime as a white, the courts probably treat you more harshly, get a harsher sentence. That's some of the research looking into that as well. So looking into every aspect of it, not just the actual, the whole thing. They're doing some fantastic work. Anyway. And lastly, Eleanor Shah. Now, Eleanor Shah, like me, has no skin in this game whatsoever, other than basically she's appalled how the postmasters were treated. But she's really good at writing freedom of information requests. Oh, God. And she found one the other week, which is part of the prosecution paperwork. They had put now IC classing. You ever heard this phrase IC1, IC2, IC3? IC1 being white, IC2 being Mediterranean, IC3 being black, so forth and so on, IC4 being Asian of appearance. Quite an old IC class, but it's used internationally. And it's not really that massively used anymore, but it was back in the day. Except that they supplied her with a document which had a rather, for IC3, they used a rather, I don't want to use the word, but it's a derogatory name to describe people of colour. That hadn't been given to the Post Office inquiry. She found it by Information Act. As part of the prosecution pack, it should have been part of the discovery given to the judicial inquiry. They were quite pissed off and actually had a specific day where they brought in a load of people from the Post Office and asked them, can you explain why this wasn't part of the pack? And it comes down to they were blaming KPMG for their disclosure search tool. But it's all on YouTube. You can watch the evidence. It's all on YouTube. I think it's it's August. It'll be on the YouTube channel somewhere. But they brought them in and grilled them. And, it wasn't an easy day if you were in the legal team for the Post Office that day. But Eleanor Shah, bless her, she's fantastic. Anyway, so let's have a look at the basic timeline. 1996, Fujitsu win the contract. It's a PFI contract. That was ICO at the time. 1999 to 2000. So November 1999 is when the first Horizon terminal hit a desk at the Post Office. Up to 500,000 victims. So I got that information there, the 500,000 victims, from a piece of Fujitsu propaganda I found on their website from 2003. I'm not entirely sure how accurate it is, but they wouldn't have posted it somewhere. 2000, Alan Bates writes to the Post Office regarding discrepancies. Alan Bates is a postmaster. He's taken his post office over in 1998. This is Alan Bates. He's from Yorkshire. He's a very methodical man, a details guy. He's from Yorkshire, so he's very stubborn. And he had a discrepancy of £5,000, and he couldn't understand it. So he went through his till receipt, and the only logs he had was his till receipt, and he found about £4,000 worth of double entries. So he wrote to the post office and said, look, I need more access to logs, more transaction logs, so I can go and if I've got a loss, I need to be able to understand where these logs are. Where was the loss? I've only got this paper receipt, which is not the best. And he wrote to the post office 3 or 4 times. And in 2003, they terminated his contract because he was asking too many questions. But as a sign of goodwill, the £1,050 or whatever it was that he owed, or deemed to be owed, they let go. Because just for goodwill. You say about keep your friends close and enemies closer? That's not the last thing I hear of him. Right, 2004, Lee Carston, he has an audit, at least a suspension. We're going to cover Lee Carston's case in a minute. And 2007, he gets sued for nearly £26,000. 2009, Rebecca Thompson writes a Computer Weekly article. Now, the article is really, really, really good. It's still online, you can still read it. Link's there, number 19. And it goes into case studies. It goes into Lee Castleton's, it goes into Joe Hamilton's, it goes into Paul Thomas, I'll come to him later, and Alan Bates is in there as well. And it goes into their stories. It's really, really good. It's very well written. And yeah, it's the first case. It's really fun. Yes, it's comprehensive. Really good. Anyway, it says that. And in November that same year, the Justice Sub Postmaster Alliance was formed in Fenny Compton. Anyone know where Fenny Compton is? Oh, you guys don't get that much. Right. So, Fenny Compton comes out and says it, but basically it was Convenience Store magazine. This is the article from back in the day, October. I'm going to rush through a lot of the websites because you can go read them in your own leisure. But basically, he was explaining what was happening was Alan had basically gone off, and because he'd been reading stories of postmasters being convicted, he'd been contacting other sub-postmasters at that time and invited them to this meeting in Fenny Compton. Now, Fenny Compton is there. It's just north of Banbury, and there's the hall where they met. It was a very English affair in November, sitting around drinking tea and biscuits. And that's from Panorama. They did the dramatization. But Joe Hamilton was there with Izzy Hogg. Izzy Hogg was Stephen Mitchell's solicitor. Noel Thomas was there. There's lots of people there. But as they sat round and they're telling their stories to each other, it was very, very clear that basically whenever they had any interaction with any post office member of staff or Fujitsu member of staff, or the courts or the legal teams, they were all told one thing. And a word of warning, never say this to a postmaster, because you will get punched and you deserve it. They were all told that you're the only one. If there was a problem with Horizon, I deal with people all the time. Surely I would know about it. But you're the only one telling me there's a problem with Horizon. Which, on the scale of lying, is not a white lie. It is up there with, it's up there. It's not a good lie. So at that point then, it's like that fueled them. Because they had suddenly, all their stories, everything that changed was literally amounts of geography. It was ridiculous. The stories were all the same. So they created the Justice Sub-Postmasters Alliance, or JFSA. Also, in 2010, Horizon is updated. Now, Horizon was using 4MT when it was released in 1999, and to fix some of those issues, they continued using 4MT until 2017. So they updated. That's when they got the new screen. That's where the money went, I think. And in October 2010, Seema Mishra goes to trial. We'll cover her in a second as well. In 2011, the Justice of Postmasters now a quite mature group. They've got James Bartholomew, who's now Lord Bartholomew, who's an MP at the time. Oliver Letwin, I think, was involved. Andrew Bridgen, whom of really strange COVID opinions, were involved in trying to get the post office to have an independent audit. And the post office went, well, okay, you know what? If we can clear Horizon once and for all, we'll stop all these sub-postmasters, yoinks, basically saying it's a computer issue. Well, we know it's not, because Fujitsu tells us the system's robust. Well, why would they lie? So, in 2012, they started an audit. I told you, someone started it. So April the 1st, the Royal Mail and the Post Office split. The Royal Mail is where all your postmen, sorting offices, that's in private hands now. Post Office is literally counters now. That's still in by public. But Second Sight reports, their interim report, in 2013. It was such a shock to the post office that they instantly went to an external company, a legal company called Beck Cartwright King, and Simon Clark issued some advice based on their interim report. It comes as the Clark advice later. It's quite important. Martin Griffiths. So, Martin Griffiths. He was a sub-postmaster in 1995. He was audited and suspended over £23,000 loss. He was reinstated pretty quickly, so I don't know the circumstances around that, and I wouldn't like to suggest anything like that, but I'm guessing that basically there was no circumstances around it, and they cleared him quite quickly. He had a big loss between 2012 and 2013, £57,000. And in fact, in 2013, he had an armed robbery, and he was deemed to be 50% responsible, and the reason why is he was trying to take a parcel in to the post office, but the little stupid hatch wasn't big enough, so he opened the door to get the parcel in. And because he hadn't secured the post office when it was robbed, they deemed him to be 50% responsible. Yeah. If you get the impression the post office aren't nice people, okay, they're not. Yeah. Anyway, family reckon they paid over £100,000 to cover Horizon's losses over the lifetime of him working there. But remember I was saying to you about people just paying money back in so they avoid any, don't want to get sacked or anything like that. Yes. Anyway, 23rd of September 2013, Martin got up as he went downstairs. He sat down with his wife and kids, had breakfast, and he left for work at the same time. He was due to meet some auditors at his post office that morning. And so off he went. He's met them before, it's not an issue. Left at the same time, off he drove. Life was good. His wife was listening to the local radio and heard a traffic jam on the news story. She knew something was right straight away. And this really makes me angry, to be fair. Martin pulled along the side of the road into a lay-by, and he contemplated. I think it's about 30 minutes he sat there. And instead of going to see the PO auditors that morning, bear in mind he's already had some interaction with them, and I've not heard good stories about these people. I wouldn't say they're on the professional end of professional. They're just nasty people, just proper wannabe coppers. Some of the ex-coppers probably kicked out. He sat at the side of the road to contemplate what to do, and he decided getting out of his car and stepping in front of a bus was a more attractive option. So, anyone who tells you don't need to be technical to work in IT or IT security, or I'm trying to sell you something, be nice to you, or lying to you. We have a company, Fujitsu, who supplied a computer system which is basically a random number generator. It was horrible. It was buggy as hell. The butterfly effect of employing people who didn't know what they were doing led to 4 suicides which have been attributed to Horizon, of which this is one. I'm certain there's probably others. So, yeah, IT. If you work in IT, you need to be technical. We've all got to start somewhere, but don't tell people, yeah, you can do that. You don't have to be technical. At some point, you are going to have to be technical. That is the end result if you get it wrong. 2015, 9th of April, Second Sight released the full report. It's the 27th version of the report. Post Office obviously say it's crap. Alan Bates has in the meantime secured funding from Freeze for a group litigation order. Group litigation order, if you don't know what one of those is, America have class actions. They get together and sue someone. Over here, we call it group litigation order. Very similar thing. Horizon NGA is released now. It's gone to Windows 10. It still has some issues. It's a lot stabler than it used to be. But I understand, given the numbers of machines are out there, it's still not as good as most enterprise environments as you'd like to have. The group litigation order starts in March in 2019, ends on December the 10th, 2019. It doesn't end in anyone winning, it ends in a settlement. The Post Office codes the JFSA and say, listen, how much to make this go away? December 16th, Justice Fraser, who was overseeing the trial, releases his judgment. We'll be coming heavily on that document later. The 14th of January, Justice Fraser then writes to Max King. Max King, KC, is the current head of the Department of Public Prosecutions. Why would a judge be doing that? We'll explain that in a couple of slides. And the 20th of December, almost a year to the day, the first 6 sub-postmasters who have been convicted on evidence based on Horizon were cleared. To date, 91 have, 5 were cleared on Wednesday. In fact, technically, 92, because one was cleared in Scotland yesterday, the first case in Scotland of someone being cleared. Because they've got a different legal system, it's a bit more complicated a little bit. So technically, 92 people have been convicted. How many people have been convicted? Well, this is a document that was actually, these numbers here were found by Nick Wallace, who, did I mention he wrote a book called Great Post Office Scandal, which is really, really good and you should buy it. So he wrote to the Post Office for Freedom of Information Press and said, look, how many people have you prosecuted over what years? So they supplied him this, which is all good, except that this guy here then wrote, 4 days before I gave the talk in Stilcon, gave evidence at just inquiry, say, yeah, those numbers, you don't think they're accurate anymore. Oh, thanks, mate. And this guy yesterday, this is why I was up to late last night, this guy yesterday, he come up with what they think the numbers are now, which is this document here. I played about it, I tried to make it as displayable as I can. I was a bit tired, maybe a bit drunk, and I come up with this. So the black numbers are the numbers that were given to Nick Wallace. The red numbers are now what the Post Office believe it is, and the blue numbers, which are the third column effectively, are pre-Horizon, but where there was a loss of loss of revenue for the Post Office. So effectively the till was down. So if we get rid of those, we've got that. So the numbers are roughly the same. What's concerning here is, we know postmaster is a sub-postmaster, assistant, employees who work in the Crown Estate, no idea, unknown or other. What's the difference between other and unknown? I don't know. And there's lots of unknowns at the bottom, basically, with people convicted of it, what year. And Simon Raskin, what's his name, whatever the guy was yesterday, who had evidence, he basically said the numbers are evolving all the time as we come across more information. Now you think if you're taking your employee or contractors to court, you'd like to keep a little bit of a tally of who you take to court and who you haven't. Was it transpires? No, they didn't. And so those numbers, this has now become a moving target. They might find more people they prosecuted they forgot about. Or they might think, oh no, actually we didn't prosecute him. I don't know how it's going to work, but literally that's pretty much what the guy said yesterday. It was almost one person a week. And if you've ever taken someone to a criminal trial, especially with it to do with finances, it's not an easy task. And knocking one out a week, if you excuse the expression, is healthy for you. Do it, seriously. But this is just criminal trials, it's not civil trials, this is criminal trials. One person a week, civil trial, across the country, is, credit where it's due, that's good effort, but, the numbers of people they prosecuted were roughly the same. We believe 736 were actually found guilty, of which, like I say, 92 so far have been cleared, 6 this week. But this is where it gets a bit more interesting. Let's apply our timeline to that story, to our statistics, because you're all very clever people, and you'll see the pattern. It took me some time, but I'm sure you'll see the pattern before I do. So, Horizon rollout begins, and suddenly, sub-postmasters go on a crime spree. It's the only reason for possibility. 2013, the Simon Clark advice was issued to the Post Office Board. Okay, what have you seen? I haven't. I don't know. Okay. 2019, obviously, you have the group litigation order. And here's the interesting thing. After group litigation order, obviously, there's more legal action taking place. Obviously, we've got the judicial inquiry going on as it stands. But in 2020, the Clark advice was disclosed to the Post Office. It wasn't given, because the Post Office aren't very good at disclosing things in court. It wasn't given to the group litigation order. It was very, very valid for the group litigation order, because it determined how the Post Office dealt with stuff. It was found by Paul Marshall, one of the nice people at the bottom left corner, so to make a note of. Paul Marshall found it and said it was the most devastating legal document he'd seen in his career, which is, he's had quite a career. That's quite an interesting statement. But what was the Clark advice? Well, the Clark advice was literally, an advice. He asked you to what do you think about this report? Because you give me some ideas. So I started looking in there, and, it goes around, they looked at a few court cases, which they had highlighted in the paperwork that the second site seen. And it starts off by saying, an expert witness. If you go to court as a witness, you're a witness of fact. They'll ask you questions about, what you've seen. What your evidence, for example, if you're a database engineer, they'll ask you questions about database. But if they elevate you to an expert witness, rules change. Because now your duty is not to your clients, it's to the court and the proper administration of law. Same as a barrister, same as a junior solicitor. If you're a legal professional, your first duty is not to your clients, to the court. Anyway, so it just goes to clear that. And it goes on to talk about a guy called Dr. Jenkins. I'm not too sure he's a doctor. If he is, not too sure what of. There's a guy called Gareth Jenkins. He works for Fujitsu. Worked for Fujitsu, he's retired. He's the solutions architect for Fujitsu on the Horizon project. And it mentions these cases here. There's a case study. As you can see, 2012 to 2013. Now, I know who was involved in the case in 2010. I know who's involved in the case in 2007. I don't know how many other cases he's involved in, but clearly there's a lot. It focuses a lot on him, and basically, it goes on to say that an expert witness, that's what the expert should be doing. More importantly, the conclusion is, Mr. Jenkins failed to disclose material known to him that undermines his expert opinion. And more importantly, that basically damages his credibility as an expert witness. So in short, what the legal advice is saying is that guy from Fujitsu, we've been using an expert witness. Yeah, that's not using again. He knows stuff that he hasn't told the court. Technically, perjury. Potentially, the course of justice. Goes on to say that notwithstanding the failure of Mr. Jennings, he calls me Mr. Jenkins or Mr. Jennings. I'm not saying the quality of post office legal teams are good, but yeah. But basically, he then goes on to say that Fujitsu, being his employer, basically, as they supplied him, his evidence was possibly key to the cases. It's quite possible that Fujitsu, in doing so, have averted the course of justice. I'm not a legal expert, but that's how I'm reading that. And it goes on to say that in probate cases, it's quite possible the cases he was involved in, he might need to go back to the courts of appeal, because it's quite possible, without that evidence, they might not have been successful. So what did the post office do with that advice? Oh, right, Okay, yeah, that's exactly. They did nothing. Absolutely nothing. They sat on it. They sat on it till basically it just happened to be disclosed, probably by an intern going through no documentation, that a senior barrister found, and realised snippets of that one document. It's definitely worth a read. It's number 25 on the list. Just go and read it. It's a few pages long, but it's quite good. But we know that Horizon was bad because the Prime Minister has been warned about it. Now, this is from Jeff Milland in May 1999, 6 months before Horizon's rolled out, hasn't hit a post office desk yet. Prime Minister was Tony Blair at the time, and it goes on to say, by most criteria, Horizon has been fairly disastrous prosperous. I love the word fairly and disastrous. Fantastic two words together. Misconceived from the start, has delivered in an end a far from optimal solution. I'm just happy not to see it in one of my delivery reports, but that's 6 months before Horizon's released, and that's a letter to the Prime Minister. They still continue with the project. This is from Fujitsu, around the same time. So look at what's more important here. I've never used this before, my lazy got it. Yeah, it was. Version 1, and it's February 2000. This is for EPOS, which electronic point of sales, effectively a till system. I'll explain to you what a Pinnacle is in a second. But look at the version number, look at the date, because the same document gets issued 13 months later as version 1. They're almost identical if you read both documents, which you can do because you get the numbers. You can click on them, you can download and read them. Now, it's written by a guy called Dave McDonald. This is Dave McDonald. He earned the title Dave the Destroyer because, unlike many people who work for Fujitsu or ICL and the post office in the early 2000s, where they turned up at the judicial inquiry and they started asking questions. Here's an email that you wrote. Do you remember writing it? No, I don't recall that. I don't recall this. I don't recall that. Well, it was a long time ago. This guy had total recall. He was very honest. He left ICL, I think, 2002. He was frustrated. He wanted to he saw those large chunks of the code that needed rewriting. And he was saying, look, we need to rewrite these chunks of the code because they're just, they ain't going to work otherwise. We need to write these or nothing else is going to work. And of course, the management chain looked at that and went, that's going to slow things down, cost us some money. Let's not do that. And so they didn't. And that's where we are today. Anyway, back to the document. So a Pinnacle. So a Pinnacle and a Peak are effectively the same thing. They're internal defects, effectively. So when they're designing the system, they raise the defects, they call them a Pinnacle until 2003, when they were rebranded Fujitsu, and then they started calling them Peaks. But they're the same thing, effectively. And they also have known error logs. Known error logs are effectively workarounds. So an error comes about, if it's been fixed and there's no error, it's known, you can put the search titles into the database, it'll pull up what the response is. That's what a known error log looks like. Interesting enough, it's the probable disk errors. Known error log using the word probable. I don't like that. But it's for potentially disk errors. This is around the same time that Fujitsu hard drives were failing left, right and centre. So it's quite possible to do that. I love the solution, which is reboot. This was written by this guy here called Richard Coleman. He gave up a judicial inquiry on 17th May. He left in 2007, I think, and become a priest. And I hope he's still praying because his involvement, or anyone's involvement in this project, yes, there's a special place in hell. And it's actually even further in than where I'm going. Anyway, so, Dave McDonald, in his written statement to the judicial inquiry, basically said, look, the team was well known within Bracknell 01, the building in Bracknell, the judicial building in Bracknell, as being a joke. Everyone knew the system was shite. They were the joke of the whole building. The building's got multiple different Fujitsu accounts in it. So when they went down to the canteen, I was like, there's the EPOS guys. And he knew about it. That's partly why he left. But in that report here, this is page 17 report. This is fantastic. And it's definitely worth reading that in its entirety. Although parts of the EPOS code are well written, different sections are a combination of poor technical design, bad programming, and ill thought out bug fixes. The negative impact of these factors will continue and spread as long as the Pinnacle fixing culture continues. I'll explain that in a second. This is partly due to the nature and size of the bug fixing task. There are loads of them. And partly due to the quality of professionals of certain individuals within the team. Don't worry, you don't have to be technical to work in IT. This is 2001, this was written. This is looking at EPOS's reports from 1998, I think in August or September 1998. So this is before its release. It didn't get better when they released it, because they didn't change anything. The Pinnacle fixing culture. Well, there was not one issue with Pinnacle, there was no one issue with Horizon. What affected, a bug might affect 14 branches. It might not affect every machine in those 14 branches. It might affect 2 branches. There's one over there that might affect 60 branches. It was proper, there's no one thing. So they'll literally continue, they'll just make changes left, right and centre. And this is effectively what best describes the fixing culture in Pinnacles. It's proper whack-a-mole. Problem comes in, you fix it, send it out. So, my favourite line of any report I've ever written or ever seen is the next page on page 18. I dared people in Stilcon to try and get it into a report they're writing, any report you're writing, any document you're writing, get it into an email. If you can get this phrase into anywhere, you're doing well. Whoever wrote this code clearly has no understanding of elementary mathematics or the basic programs of a program. Okay. So this is an internal Fujitsu document. I'm not making this shit up. I could not do that good a job. Yeah, just leave that one there. Thank you, Dave. So, Justice Fraser, he wrote on the 16th of February 2019, his judgment for the group investigation was on the 10th of December. And he basically puts in there, in paragraph 62 of the judgment, spreadsheet, at least in the recent notes, has shown the great number of changes by both Legacy and Horizon Online. Now, the defence and the prosecution both had expert witnesses, and they both kind of agreed that they were actually releasing 4 to 5 changes a day to production. Now, I don't know about you, but I've worked in enterprise environments. Getting one thing out the door is bad enough. Getting 4 to 5 a day is either you've got a very efficient change process, and test process, and design process, or a very deficient one. But it also begs the question, I haven't been able to get this one answered, that say for example you're knocking so many changes out the door, is there a succession? Is there a dependency on previous releases? Because ultimately you could sign in a Horizon terminal in the morning, go for lunch, come back, and it's got a completely different code base if it updated. But say for example release number 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9 hit the machine, but it's dependent on number 6. Would that then cause further issues? I don't know. I haven't been able to get that answered, but it's a good question. But ultimately, yes, they were just playing whack-a-mole. Absolutely whack-a-mole. Let's get another change out the door. And how they were releasing them that quick, just without a clearly change management, shall we say, was a very streamlined approach to change management. But going on to what he said, in part of his other documentation that he released on the 16th of January, he mentions he had grave concerns regarding the veracity of evidence given by Fujitsu employees in courts and previous civil and criminal courts. So that led him to write that letter to Max Hill, the Department of Prosecution, which is this letter here. You can read it in its entirety. But it goes on. That's basically led to Operation Olympus, which basically March 2000 was started. They've interviewed Gareth Thomas 3 times under caution and Chambers twice under caution. Neither have been arrested, neither have been charged, both innocent and proven guilty. Let's at least give them that privilege if they didn't live up to the postmasters. Yes, that continues. The problem with the judicial inquiry is the evidence isn't given to the police until it's made public. So they've got a waiver on some legal privilege and some of the stuff, so they've got lots of really good documentation, which is where I'm getting all my documentation from, because it appears in the screens. It's public. The police don't get that evidence until it's made public. And until the judicial inquiry ends, then they'll get that's going to be a couple of long weekends for a few police officers, because they're going to have so much evidence of people just making really bad decisions. This is Lee Castleton. Lee Castleton is an RAF veteran, so Lee, thank you for your service again. Lee was having trouble with Horizon. So, in 2003, 2004, December to March, I think it was, yeah, he was suspended after an audit. He rang the help desk 31 times. He even asked them, come down and please audit me. In the documentation came out yesterday, the judicial inquiry, actually there's an email saying, Lee was very happy to see the auditors when they turned up, because Lee had done nothing wrong. He had 2 machines, but there's only one machine that had an issue. They obviously changed lots of bits of the machine, still had the same issue. They sued him for nearly £26,000. This is a civil case, not a criminal case, which is why it's not in those numbers. They took a lot of people to civil court, and most people bowed down, just paid the money, because ultimately, these are decent people. They had to go through security checks to become a sub-postmaster. You just don't walk into a sub-post office and go, today I'm a sub-postmaster. Lots of checks I have to go through. This is the case paper against him. Richard Morgan was the barrister prosecuting him. And on January 11th, 2007, they won the case. We'll come into that again. He was awarded costs. The judge of the case found Anne Chambers to be a clear, knowledgeable and reliable witness and accept her evidence. Yes and no. This is Anne Chambers. That's how many times she's given evidence in judicial inquiries. So she's given 1 day and a half days and 2 days this week. She gave evidence. She was kind of thrown to the wolves, to be fair. She turned out to be a witness of fact, which is about Tivoli logs. Fujitsu didn't give the Tivoli logs to the court, but she turned up to talk about Tivoli logs. She ended up being an expert witness, which changes the way the court approaches her. In Justice Fraser's paper, in his letter to Max Hill, he mentions that basically in her own emails, it mentions a bug, which Calendar Square bug, which could have affected these terminals, and relevant Kel was written by his guy called John Simpkins, who still works with Fujitsu, that's him giving evidence at the judicial inquiry. And it goes on to say, look, it didn't form any of their evidence, and it should have. It may not have been relevant, but you have to turn around and say, I'm aware of some bugs, but nothing that could have affected this. That would have been perfectly fine. But to deny an existence, or not to mention an existence, is as good as denying in a court when they're asking, are there any issues that could have affected it, is not good. So, anyway, she wrote a 2-page shitogram to Fujitsu management when she got back. She wasn't too happy about being classed as an expert witness. And in it, she's effectively saying Fujitsu made a legal blunder by not disclosing all relevant evidence. So they're having a Fujitsu employee, as well as Simon King, saying that Fujitsu should say, should be more proactive in what they were doing. Unfortunately, everything that Fujitsu would do was chargeable to the post office. So you could argue that they weren't paid to do it, but under law, it doesn't matter if they're paid or not, you have a civic duty to do so. That's neither here nor there. So, let's discuss costs. So, we know that they won £26,000 from Reed. We know that he didn't have much money. We know that basically, if you go to a civil court, you've got to sue someone for £26,000. Any money for after it is going to be basically, you're not going to get back either. It's simple as that. So, how much money do you as a company spend to try and get that £26,000 back, which you know you won't get back? £1,000? £2.5? £5? And it's interactive, you can stop it any time. 100,000. Would you spend £250,000 trying to get £26,000 back? A company the size of the post office, which has a £3 billion a month turnover, that's the biscuit budget, isn't it, for the meeting. They spent £321,000 of your money, taxpayers' money, getting that £26,000 back, which they didn't ever get back. This guy here, Richard Morgan, was the head of notepaper. Maitland Chambers is where he currently works. I only put that there because that's where his CV is. Maitland Chambers had nothing to do with anything to do with post office related, just to get out of the way. He worked for a company called Bond Pierce, who later changed the name to Womble Bond Dickinson, who I still call Cock Womble. Within the legal community, they're called the Wombles. They're not very well respected, the Womble Bond Dickinson. If you go to any legal forums that I have found myself in the last couple of years, they're not held in high regard. This is Stephen Dilly. He's a particularly smug bastard. How he is. No, he gave evidence. Watch his evidence. And he's denying anything, doing anything wrong. No, I did everything correct. Clearly not. And we'll come to that in a second. You see some of the documentation, some of his emails he wrote. Anyway, so, this is Lee's written statement. And basically he says that, Richard Morgan asked him to go meet him outside his office to go get the court bundle. The court bundle's offers the paperwork. He needs that paperwork in order to go to court. He gets that. He goes, look, Lee, you don't need to go. Let us finish this, make it all go away. You just get on with your lives. Now, obviously that's an attempt to get Lee not to turn up. Lee doesn't turn up in court. He wins by default. Life is good. Even in civil court, prosecution to defence outside of the court about a case is frowned upon. That is, it's not very good. It would have been struck off for that. But he did it. It's in Lee's, I've got no evidence to say this happened, but this is Lee's written statement. It's sworn evidence to the judicial inquiry, so I assume it's true. He also, Stephen Dilly, then rings him that night. He's checking into the hotel with his father-in-law saying, Lee, you must understand you don't need to go on Wednesday. We were surprised to see you. I bet you fucking were. The conversation went, but Lee, look, we are the post office. We will ruin you. Now, Stephen Dilly denied saying that. He said that Lee was probably misunderstood. Then why would Lee repeat it? Say, no, Lee, just listen, we will ruin you. Think of your family. Yeah, Stephen Dilly's quite awkward when he was asked about that phrase. Anyway, this was Stephen Dilly's LinkedIn page on 20th of June 2021. The reason why I know that date is on the 27th of June 2021. I posted that on Twitter. He changed it overnight. But let's have a look. Client invested £800 million in an IT system and its contracts didn't work. There's a reason for that. I won the seminal case that said otherwise. No, Richard Morgan won the case. You were there signing stuff. Red faces avoided. This is a professional. This is his LinkedIn page. It's supposed to be. He's now actually a senior partner at the Wombles. But he's like this is his partner. This is his LinkedIn page. People will go to his page and see this and think, hey, he's the kind of guy I want representing us. Oops. Shall we delete data from our computer system? Jesus Christ. Yeah. Apparently you don't have to know law to work in the legal world. That much is true. But he also did it the same on their corporate page as well, 27th, 28th. They changed that as well because I posted that as well. And they changed it overnight. Because I included their American subsidiary, from Livermore and Dickinson as well, and it's quite embarrassing for them. Never mind. If you go there to this page today, they also, it's still not there, but they've also read the Barclays case, but that was to do with mortgages, nothing to do with that. Now, obviously, Stephen's not here to defend himself. I haven't asked him whether or not basically it's a fair summary of events. After seeing his evidence the other day, I think it actually is. But the Law Society Gazette actually did ask him, because they did a post on him last year, and he refused to comment because based obviously ongoing judicial inquiry, so I don't see why he would talk to me. Here's an email from Stephen Diddy to his boss, Tom Bezer. Tom Bezer was a partner at the Wombles. What's really important here is obviously that it's from Mr. Diddy, and it basically says, look, Mr. Carston's listers are asking us for information. How dare they? They want disclosure. I hate when they do that. And they're asking for were there any wider issues with the post office, with the Horizon system, not just specific to Leeds. Were there any wider issues, which could be an indicator of a pattern? Well, I think we can understand that probably was. He also goes on to say he got this information here from the post office, and he goes, a Horizon help desk receives 12,000 to 15,000 calls per month. This is for technical problems from Horizon. This is Statement Services, which is the post office. There's 20,000 calls which are account issues. I don't know about you, but if you've got a help desk and you've only got 15,000 branches, they are quite significant numbers. More so when you look at this number here. This is from the Parliamentary Library of Post Office Numbers for everything. Outreach, the mobile ones, agency are the sub-post offices, and Crown are obviously the Crown post offices. So, 2005, roughly just under 15,000 post offices, and they are getting 15,000 calls a month for technical help. If I was a service management lead for the post office, I'd be asking why is that the case? Maybe we should send some of our staff on this training, because that number needs to come down. That just doesn't work. Anyway, that letter didn't get disclosed to Lee Castleton's defence team. But it came up in the judicial inquiry as well, as with loads of other stuff as well. This is Stephen Diddy giving evidence. Oh, there's his profile. One's a car salesman, one's an estate agent. I'm not buying anything on either of them. But he gave evidence he gave evidence one day. He had to come back the next morning because basically he was being asked so many questions. It's quite painful to watch. But at the end of the day, if you go to the 55 link, that's when the core participants' legal teams are asking questions. Oh, you've never seen a man squirm like I am just now. He squirmed worse. That's Richard Morgan giving evidence for days. Seema Misra. So Seema Misra is the first case I heard of the post office inquiries. It's the one that basically got me interested in the whole thing, this rabbit hole I went down. Not saying I had no involvement in this whatsoever. So Seema Misra, she had two post offices. The second post office is where they started having the issue. And my husband Devinder were doing quite well. Took the second post office on, that's where it all started going a bit wrong for them. She was suspended in 2008 after an accuracy after an audit, and she was then charged with £75,000 worth of theft, despite evidence of her borrowing money to pay money back in, and all the other good stuff. Off she went to court. Now, prior to going to court, obviously there was the usual emails between Izzy Hogg and the legal team saying, well, can we have some disclosure, please? And go to Chesterfield, see what the process is like. They weren't having it. So, following a 3-week trial, she was found guilty of theft and 6 out of false accounting. 4 times during the trial, Andy Dunks and Gareth Jenkins gave evidence, but 4 times during the trial they asked for, are there any known issues, any known errors? Now, that known error log and the known, the pinnacles and the peaks, in the group litigation order, they were only given after the judge asked 4 times for them. Post office first, they said, well, I don't think they exist. The second time they asked, well, they do exist, but they're owned by Fujitsu. The judge pointed out to them, actually, no, you own them. They said, yeah, but they're not relevant. And at the 4th time of asking, the judge basically said, no, bring them, I'll decide whether they're relevant or not. They brought in tens of thousands of pages of known error logs and pinnacles and peaks. They'd actually asked whether or not there were any issues. Known error logs, for example, and they denied there was any issues. But like I say, Andy Dunks, he also turned up at, as well as Anne Chambers at Lee Carston's trial as well. Gareth Jenkins was on the hook to go to Lee Carston's trial, but he got called off at the last moment, but I think there might have been a witness statement for that. She was sentenced to 15 months in prison in order to pay £40,000, which is pretty shit. It was her son's 10th birthday she was sent down. She was a little over 8 weeks pregnant. Yeah, that's what disgusted me. Here's an email just after he got prosecuted. This is from Janelle Singh, who's the senior legal team in the post office. Notice the actual byline there. Attack on a horizon. Not, well, we've nabbed another thief. Attack on a horizon. It was all about protecting the Horizon's reputation. That's why they went after Lee Carstens so badly, because he was talking to other sub-postmasters and saying, I think the computer system done this, and they all started to believe it. So they had to shut him up. And they had to do the same with Seymour. They couldn't see Horizon as being blamed for anything, because otherwise all the other sub-postmasters start blaming it. So attacking Horizon, why would you put that? Not just that, the considerable expertise of Gareth Jenkins of Fujitsu, we were able to destroy the cornerstone of proof by not giving it to the defence. Yeah, very little respect for those people. Never mind. Anyway, not all bad news. She served 4 months, and after 2 months of being released, she gave birth wearing an ankle tag. Some indignity in that, I think. More importantly, though, on the 23rd of April 2021, she, along with 38 sub-postmasters, were cleared. And this is where four-page Paul Marshall and Nick Gould come into their own, because whilst 39 people were cleared, they also went for a second line of appeal, a second limb, which was their convictions were affront to public conscience, which basically meant that it could bring the judiciary into disrepute. It should never have happened. So they were cleared effectively twice, her, Tracy Felstead and Janet Skinner. They crossed that cleared line, and they carried on running. So those 3 legal professionals did fantastic work in that, and that's why they definitely didn't mention. So Second Sight, this is where Second Sight really comes to their own. Because in 2015, they released their report, their 27th version of their actual report. 1411, I was going to mention that there, because it says the document refers to correcting live data. Now, this is something that Fujitsu and the Post Office denied were possible. They said that data is integral, you can't change it. Well, there it is. It's on Post Office legal paper for October 2010, saying they could. 5 years previous to this report being written. A couple of days before Seymour Miser's trial. Surely having access to live data, be able to change stuff is mentionable in court. Someone else had access to the system, possibly. It also goes on to say about this receipts and payments mismatch error, which it says there's a joint meeting between the Post Office and Fujitsu in August 2010. It wasn't. It was October the 4th. The reason I know it's October 4th is because in Justice Fraser's letter to King, to the DPP, it mentions 2 letters there. It's 29th of September and the 4th of October. Here is the letter he was referring to in the meeting for 29th of September, which mentions Gareth Jenkins wrote it. It receipts and payments mismatch error, and it's talking about what they need to talk to the Post Office about in their meeting. Here's the meeting with the Post Office on October 4th. As you can see, Gareth Jenkins is there, John Simpkins, who we saw earlier, is there. And it basically goes on to say about the receipts and payments mismatch bug. What it basically was a bug that basically, this is what it says, the branch appeared to balance, whereas in fact it could be a loss or gain. So for all intents and purposes, sub-postmaster, it balances! That should have been suspicious enough. But the very fact that basically that could go on for a few weeks and then suddenly you get hit with a £20,000 loss, you were completely unaware of it. There were losses accounting all during the week. Second of all, basically the accounting system is out of sync with their main branch, but it was widely known, complete loss of the confidence in the Horizon system by branches. Yeah, 2010 was a bit late for that, but yeah. And if branches, if the good branches ammunition to blame Horizon, and potential impact on legal cases where branches are disputing the integrity of the Horizon data, like the one that was about to happen in a week's time with Seymour Misra. It offered 3 solutions. The first one is the interesting one, which is basically Fujitsu will have to manually write an entry into the local branch accounts. And yeah, this could basically be seen as tampering. But if you don't have remote access to that data, how can they possibly do that? This is something the Post Office would drive up to 2019. In fact, Paula Vanells was actually in front of the Parliamentary Committee 2015, sitting next to Ian Henderson, who was laughing his head off at her. Paula Vanells was saying it wasn't possible in front of the Parliamentary Committee. The link to that's actually on the same page as the links to all the numbers there. It goes on to say, the ability to write and amend branch records is sent to Post Office constantly denied. But here we have, in 2010, a document that says Fujitsu and Post Office directly amend branch data about original relevant sub-postmasters. So how do we know that? Luckily, Fujitsu may not be good at making stuff, but they're very good at documentation, as it transpires. We've seen that earlier. So we've got some Fujitsu documentation. What it basically says is they had unrestricted and unaudited privileged access at system level to any system across the whole estate, including Post Office's PCs. Basically, they could go in from a few terminals in the Bracknell building, and they had the ability to create, amend, or delete any transaction. Nothing would be locked. The postmaster would not be aware that a remote connection is being made. Now, I'm not saying this happened. It's possible, okay? I've got no evidence to say this happened. But say, for example, you've got a Fujitsu employee who had access to that machine. He has a postmaster mate. I'll delete £1,000 of cash transactions. we'll go 500 on it. That £5,000 never existed. Now, I'm not saying that ever happened. I've got no evidence to say that ever happened. Right? I also have no evidence to say it didn't happen, but I'll go there. The ability to get key mat and other information off the system. But here we have in 2003, 2002, an internal note saying Fujitsu had that level of access. Unaudited, privileged level access. Remember, you don't have to be technical to work in cybersecurity, but you don't have to be technical to understand that's not fucking good. Goes on to say that obviously it identifies Fujitsu could potentially be put at certain risks. What do they do about it? Yeah, not much. Didn't become a problem. In Justice Fraser's judgment on December 16th, 2019, it mentions it. And it mentions it in 2019, October, they brought in something called the PUA, Privileged User Access, where it now logged when an administrator account was logged on, and it logged when it was logged off. What that administrator did during that 6 years, we don't know. But, we know they were there. It's like, really? Yeah. This is the Justice Postmaster Act. This is the 23rd of April 2001. That there is Joe Hamilton. This is the bit above the sub word. That is Julian Wilson, who died unfortunately before he got found out it was clear. That's his wife. That is Noel Thomas. Noel Thomas was a postmaster, he was a postman at the age of 18. Age 30, he got married, and him and his wife took over the post office and ran it for 30 years. 42 years he worked for the post office. He was jailed for a theft of £10,000. He was also a Plaid Cymru councillor. He was local councillor. He was very much involved in the local community, and they took him to court for theft. And he spent his 60th birthday, which was Christmas Eve, in the Wirral, in prison. He's got a book coming out soon. He's got a book's been released, but it's in Welsh language. So the recent book, I think it's next month, which has been translated into English, which definitely very good. There's Tracy Skinner, there's Sam Fosstead. These are the people who cleared that one day. This is Justice Fraser, who I've mentioned so often. This guy does Iron Man triathlons for fun. He is no one's fault. He was the worst judge the post office could always get, because not only was he clever, he was skilled, and he wasn't taking their shit. He was good. But let's mention some of the people I mentioned earlier. Andy Dunks. Here's something you don't want to hear, like what Judge saying. Your name followed by expressly sought to mislead me. That's not good. This isn't the judgment that you can read it. This is Andy Dunks. What's really good is Nick Wallace. He wrote a book, called The Post Office Scandal. You should buy it. It's really, really good. Anyway, he wrote a blog which basically said, why hasn't Fujitsu sacked Andy Dunks? Because he still works for Fujitsu. Not my words. Then we have, he gets mentioned in the Max Hill letter as well to the Department of Prosecution as well. Stephen Parker, head of application security support for the post office. Mr. Parker chose specifically to give the impression in his first witness statement that Fujitsu did not have the power to inject transactions in the counter branches. Obviously, we know that not to be true. 2002 they were doing it. This is 2002. So you would have thought he would know that. But luckily, Mr. Parker clarified it in either his second or his third witness statement that he had to supply to the mitigation order. That's Mr. Parker. He's retired from Fujitsu. And I don't know what he does now, but yeah. So, I'm winding up now, so don't worry. The post office inquiry is ongoing. It's going to be ongoing for another year. It's live streamed on YouTube, and all their evidence is actually available on YouTube. You can go back and watch any of the witnesses. Dave the Destroyer, seriously. Fantastic. Bath Publishing, who, they actually published this book here by a guy called Nick Wallace. It's called The Great Post Office Scandal. If you haven't read it, I really recommend it. Literally every chapter's like 3 or 4 pages. When I read it, and I knew quite a bit about this at the time, I was still reading it. Every page was literally, oh no, oh for fuck's sake. Even I was saying that. It's a cracking book. And one of you lucky people will have it, so I'm going to give it away. Also, by Bath Publishing, also getting a load of badges, and I've got bookmarks here, because they're very nice people for me to give you guys. So feel free to come and get one of those. If you buy it from Bath Publishing, some of that money will go to the Horizon Sports Scandal Fund, which is a charity being set up for the sub-post masters. It's to help with things, silly things, for example, pay for counselling, pay for transportation. Even, for example, cinema tickets. Because these people have been fucked over and been fucked over again. Well, the compensation scheme, they're getting doubly fucked again. It's been horrible. Stephen Murdoch at UCL London, he done a computer file episode where he explains how the Horizon system is supposed to work and how it didn't work. That's a really, really good episode. That was 5. Definitely watch that. University Exeter was where Professor Richard Moorhead and his team worked. Definitely go and watch that. Oh, Investigating the Post Office Scandal. That's Nick Wallace and Rebecca Thompson. Nick wrote this book here called The Great Post Office Story. It's available from Bath Publishing. I definitely would recommend it. And Rebecca Thompson, obviously, she wrote the first part with the first Computer Weekly article, which I definitely recommend. Great podcast, definitely worth listening to. They update it quite again, but one in a while, but I'm sure they'll be coming back. And lastly, yesterday, that happened, Susan Sinclair. First case cleared in Scotland. That is really, really, really significant because, like I say, it wasn't a private prosecution, it went through the Scottish legal system, so that's really, really good. So, rounding up, now you've heard what you've heard. I hope you're equally disgusted. But more importantly, when someone says to you about the post office or Fujitsu, you just need to say to them, yeah, the post office, Fujitsu, all of it, it's all true. It's not a myth. It did happen. It was real. More so than the Jedi. And with that, there's the link to it. If you go to Twitter, I put those 2 hashtags on it. You will find that link. Watch the video. You can go through every one of those documents in your own leisure. And there you go. I probably don't have time for questions because I've been ranting too long. The book. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention it. Oh, yeah, it's a guy called Nick Wallace wrote the book. It's made by Bath Publishing. Would recommend. Fujitsu were blacklisted in 2012 by the Cabinet Office following, they sued the NHS. They got walked off of NHS contracts and they sued the NHS for £700 million. Technically, they're not on the preferred suppliers list for the government, but they still win contracts because they offer great value for money for the taxpayer. But they were blacklisted in 2012 along with Group 4 Security, who did a fantastic job of security at the Olympics. But yeah, no, nothing's happened to them. They've managed to largely avoid any kind of action because the post office are the ones who actually carried out legal action. However, at some point, their staff will have to explain their actions in court, and why didn't you disclose stuff? And that could be seen to be open if that direction come down from legal for more. There's lots of stuff as well. Might want to stop recording now. So, for example, 2015, there's 3 phases to the story. The procurement was shit, the running of it was shit. 2015 is when the cover-up started, and now we're into the compensation shite. 2015 to 2018, there's a guy called Michael Keegan, who was the CEO for Fujitsu UK Ireland. He's married to Julian Keegan, who's the education minister at the moment. 2019, he started a job at Cabinet Office overseeing the awarding of contracts in the defence world. Luckily, he worked for a defence company who just happened to win a lot of contracts in the defence world. I'm sure it's coincidence. But he also is a non-executive director for a company called Enterprise International, who you would never have heard of. But they make desktop machines that if you work in a government department that Fujitsu do the contract with, this will supplies computers. There's lots of things that need investigating. I'm not saying that Michael Keegan's done anything untoward, but it's lots of things. There's so much intertwining. I'm sure that it will come out. But unfortunately, the main focus is coming on the post office, and it probably will be for another year or so. No, the SRA, the Solicitors Regulation Authority, and the Bar Standards Board, the BSB, are they're being very, very, shall we say, lackluster.